This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. With free weekly content and free shipping over $100, you can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. My apologies if I sound a bit nasally, I'm still getting over a wicked daycare head cold. Today's game finds us back in my studio space. Joining us today is Thomas playing a zombie tribal Scarab God deck. He's hoping to make a massive army of tokens and drain us with the Scarab God on his upkeep. In a similar idea, Mika is playing Shrines with Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. Mostly what he wants to do is cast enchantments, draw some cards, and make shrine tokens. I've also brought a tribal deck, with Miirym playing my Temur dragons. Last but not least, Maximus continues to once more be a thorn in my side by screwing up the tribal theme and is playing Kynaios Tiros group hug deck. Thomas wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a tapped Halimar Depths, rearranging his top three. Mika plays a tapped Path of Ancestry. I play Snow-Covered Forest. Max plays a Forbidden Orchard. Thomas plays another tap land with a Mortuary Mire, but has nothing to return to the top of his library. Mika plays a Swamp and casts Farseek, going to find a land. I play a Snow-Covered Island and cast my own Farseek to do the same. At the end of my turn, Maximus taps his Orchard to give Thomas a Spirit token. Max taps the Orchard again, giving Thomas another Spirit token during his main phase, and uses the green he made for a Magus the Vineyard. He then plays a Boros Garrison, returning the Forbidden Orchard to hand and passing. Thomas plays a Swamp and gets 2 green in his main phase. He's got enough mana for a Havengul Lich, and passes after that. Mika plays another Triome after the one that he found from Farseek, and casts Go-Shintai. As it enters, he makes a shrine and passes to me. I untap and draw. I play a Hinterland Harbor in my main phase, and then pay a green, a red, and a blue for Temur Ascendancy and pass. Maximus plays an island, and taps his lands, plus uses the 2 green for the Magus to cast Kynaios Tiros. At the end of turn, the Kings trigger, and Maximus gets to draw a card and play a land, while Thomas and I choose to draw, and Mika decides to play a tapped Seaside Citadel. Thomas plays an island and casts a Risen Executioner in his main phase. He realizes he should have actually cast a Rooftop Storm first, so he rolls it back doing that. Moving to combat, he then hits Mika for 5. He then plays out a Newscraft Mob, which comes in with 5+1/+1 counters, while Maximus gives me a token with his Orchard, and we move to Mika's turn. Mika casts an Argothian Enchantress in his main phase, and puts Pariah onto Kynaios Tiros, drawing from the Enchantress trigger. He then casts Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom, drawing another card, and making a Shrine token from his commander as it comes in. He then plays a Stomping Ground untapped, taking 2, and moves to his end step. He pays for the Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom's trigger, milling Thomas, who has dutifully been removing counters from his Newscraft Mob to make zombie tokens for each spell cast. I play a Snow-Covered Island for turn, and tap 2 for an Arcane Signet. I then bring out Miirym, drawing as it enters from Temur Ascendancy, and just pass after that. Max plays a Forest, and casts a Horn of Greed in his main phase. He then gives me another Spirit as he taps his Forbidden Orchard to cast a Shard Convergence, finding a Plains, an Island, a Swamp, and a Mountain, and puts them to hand. We then move to his end step, with Mika and Thomas drawing, while I put out a Wooded Foothills. Maximus also gets to draw, plus play a Reflecting Pool, and then discards down to 7. Thomas draws and gains his mana in his main phase, and can swing with his now massive army of zombie tokens. and I decide to crack my wooded foothills, losing 1 to find a land. He then casts the Scarab God, which seems like a good thing when you have an army of zombies out. He then pays the 1 with the Havengul Lich, and targets the Noosecraft mob in his graveyard, and casts it from his graveyard for free thanks to Rooftop Storm. He then moves to combat, and swings everything at Mika. This has 20 points of damage getting redirected to Kynaios and Tiros instead, and takes out Maximus' commander. Thomas passes after that. Mika plays an Exotic Orchard, and draws from the Horn trigger. He then casts a Cloud Cover, and draws from the Enchantress trigger as well. With nothing else, he ships the turn. I untap, and draw for my turn. I start my turn off right by casting a Dragon Tempest, and getting double Super Haste as a result, and then cast an Obsidian Charmaw. I get 2 Enter the Battlefield triggers, 1 from Miirym and 1 from the Tempest, and I resolve the token copy first, and then resolve the 2 Charmaw triggers, blowing up one of Mika's lands and one of Thomas's lands. I also draw 2 cards from the Temur Ascendancy triggers, and get 2 Tempest triggers to resolve as well. I have both target the Havengul Lich to take it out. I follow up with Corlessa Scale Singer, and get another token copy of it as well thanks to Miirym. I don't get to draw, but I do get 2 more Tempest triggers, and layer it so the token comes in before the damage happens, so the Tempest will see it. I target the Scarab God, and Go-Shintai. Responding to his Cloudburst trigger, Mika activates Go-Shintai to bring back Pariah, and puts it onto the real Corlessa. Go-Shintai is then bounced back to his hand, and Scarab God gets taken out. I decide not to swing and leave myself open to the zombie horde though, and pass, with Thomas returning Scarab God to his hand at the end of turn. Maximus plays a Plains, and brings out Braids in his main phase. He then casts a Wall of Shards, and the Noosecraft mob once more loses its last counter, making its 5th 2/2 zombie token. Thomas resolves the Braid trigger, and puts into play his Scarab God for free from hand. He then draws for turn, and gets 2 green mana from the Magus, but forgets about his own Rooftop Storm, as he taps enough mana to cast a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We're quick to help correct him on this though, but he still gets to drain us for 5 each, and gains a total of 15. He then actually casts Endless Ranks of the Dead, and goes to combat. He's not a fan of the Pariah enchantment for some reason, and swings everything at Mika again. This does way more necessary damage to take up my enchanted Corlessa, and with nothing else, he passes turn. Mika resolves his Braid trigger by putting out Go-Shintai, and makes a Shrine token as it enters. He uses the floating mana and some lands for Replenish, returning all the enchantments from his graveyard, and brings back Thomas's hated Pariah, which is promptly put onto the Scarab God. He then casts a No Mercy, drawing from the Argothian Enchantress trigger, and passing to me. On my upkeep, I put out Udvara Hellkite thanks to the Braid trigger, and get a token copy because of Miirym being out. I get to draw 2 cards from Temur Ascendancy, and deal 6 damage twice to Thomas's face. I then draw for turn. I play a Snow-Covered Island, and draw again from the Horn trigger. I then tap enough and use the 2 green floating from the Magus to cast a Savage Ventmaw, getting a token copy of it as well, drawing 2 from the Temur Ascendancy, and dealing 8 damage to Max, which unfortunately I forget to mark down. Moving to combat, the whole team goes at Thomas, which triggers the Udvar Hellkite, and each Hellkite will make me 7 more 6/6 dragon tokens for a total of 14. Now, we're not entirely sure how the triggers resolve exactly, but we're pretty sure one Hellkite resolves first, meaning 7 tokens see 14 dragons each, and then the second trigger resolves with 7 tokens seeing 28 dragons each, but either way, I have enough damage for the Tempest triggers, but we all agree that I have way more than enough damage from the Tempest triggers to take everyone out in one shot and win the game. Game review time. So I think I immensely benefited from Maximus's Group Hug deck. I was able to get some lands out, get some mana, and just do all the stuff that I wanted to do without having to pay any mana for it. Even on that last turn, I think even if I hadn't been able to cheat out the Hellkite thanks to Braids, I still had enough mana to likely cast it, and would have won handedly thanks to the synergy of the Utvar Hellkite and Dragon Tempest. I think Thomas's deck was probably the second most threatening of the table, although I'm surprised he kept focusing on Mika. I know that the Pariah is kind of annoying, but he could have swung some of his other zombies at Maximus or I. I know Mika's been really raring to play the Go-Shintai deck, but it seems like it's a bit camera shy. I've filmed some other ones with Go-Shintai, and the deck can be kind of irritating in the sense that it just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and it has so many triggers and it can take such a long time to commit its turn. Kynaios Tiros is very much a group hug deck, and it was one of the commanders that I was actually considering of turning Tristani into because it would give me access to blue and red. Maximus has really exemplified the group hug aspect of this deck, as you saw with the cards like Magus of the Vineyard and the Horn of Greed helping people ramp and draw cards. I actually don't think he even has a win con in this deck, it's mostly just a Kingmaker deck. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.